Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Super Soldier Talk. I have a very exciting show today of our special guest, Jimmy Paine. So Jimmy's been on here multiple times in the past, and I know he always strikes up a lot of controversy whenever we bring him on here. But I continue to bring him on here because his testimony is something that needs to be documented, and whether or not it can be verified, I'll just leave that to the time traveling divisions in the future. You guys can figure it out, but it's important to keep make a record of what happened back in this particular era. And that right now, what we're going to in this particular show, we're going to go into the Apollo missions. So thank you, Jimmy, for joining us. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Great. So let me go ahead and read Jimmy's bio, and then we can start asking some questions. So Super Soldier Agent Jimmy Paine, aka Dallas, was in the secret space program from 1959 to 1996. During this time, he was a shuttlecraft pilot for the Tall White Warriors at Area 51 and participated in time travel missions with the Montauk Boys at Camp Hero. He also recalls working for the Weyland Corporation, where he encountered a xenomorph at LV-426, which the movie Aliens was based off of. He was also stationed on Mars, Titan, and the Moon. Interesting. I just posted an article about Titan, about New Nuremberg. It's one of the German breakaway colonies. We can go into that later. On Mars, he has seen a broken statue of a giant face of a humanoid on a mission in 1974, along with Duncan O'Finoian. He remembers seeing the Tommyknockers on a cave on Mars, which are a muscular type of tall gray. On the Moon of Titan, he was stationed at a massive underground base where he was tasked with fighting a monster they called It. It looked like a junior Montauk monster, a Bigfoot type monster that would gain strength by attacking it. He was also on a secret mission from Vandenberg Air Force Base, the Apollo 20 mission with William Rutledge, and I think you might have said 17 too, where they discovered Apollo 17. They discovered an Oriental-looking humanoid named EBE or EB I guess it's EB Mona Lisa or EBE. Jimmy claims the Apollo 20 footage on YouTube is real, and I do have a few clips of that, which I'll attempt to play today. Hopefully, YouTube will be accommodating and not try to shut the feed off like they did with the Predator topic. Jimmy will be speaking on the oral history from a secret astronaut's point of view of the Apollo 17. Yeah, okay. So these missions took place between 1972 and 1976 using the Saturn V rocket, which I guess at this point they were using spare leftover parts from the Apollo program. On these missions, they encountered a deserted lunar cathedral city, an underground complex on the moon. They also recovered the Mona Lisa, which is in stasis in a general area. So they brought her back. And Jimmy will also be speaking on some of the life forms, paranormal activity, and the environment he encountered on the moon. So thank you again, Jimmy, for coming on here today.
You're welcome, James.
And also, thank you, audience members, for participating with us today as well. If you have some questions about Jimmy, will, as long as they're good questions, I'll keep track of them, and we can bring it up when the time is appropriate. So, why don't I guess we've already discussed a little bit in before you came on here about some of your experiences, but why don't you just go ahead and just give us a rundown of the different Apollo missions? And just give us a short summary, and then we can go more in depth in each one.
You have Apollo 15, which was the one that actually found the craft when it was making the orbit around the moon. The spacecraft where EB Mona Lisa was actually spotted by Apollo 15. Now that was classified up into the 1970s. Now you have Apollo 17, which was the last manned mission to the moon. That was the sixth and final mission that the public was aware of. and then you have 17, you have 18, 19, and 20, which was classified. And those are the ones I'm most familiar with, are the classified ones.
All right. So tell us, give us a brief rundown of what happened in Apollo 17.
Okay. I'm going to go back. Apollo 17 launched in 1972, the later half of 1972. Now, the earlier part of 1972, I want to say around May of 1972, von Braun, the German scientist who came over to the States, he was in charge of NASA. He retired in May of 1972. He is the one I'm most familiar with because I worked under him under Paperclip. When he retired, Richard Nixon, President Richard Nixon, appointed James James Fletcher to the over NASA. So James Fletcher was the director of NASA in 1972 when the Apollo 17, the last manned mission that was known to the general public. Now, what happened in 1972? There was over in the Middle East, there was several planes that had gotten hijacked, and one of the planes had passengers on it, and it was forced to land in Jordan. And the Palestine Liberation Army, which was called Black September, terrorist group Black September, blew the plane up with some of the terrorists on it along with the passengers. So the terrorists was blowing themselves up, and then the terrorists went and they broke into the Olympic when the Olympics was being held. They broke into a dormitory and they murdered several Israeli athletes in the World Olympics. So word got back to NASA that this Black September, they wanted to either blow up the NASA spacecraft, or they were going to try to kidnap one of the family members of the children or the wife or somebody of one of the NASA astronauts. So NASA beefed up security around the launch pad, and they ordered the NASA astronauts to move on the base where they could provide 24/7 security. And then it got so bad, they had to go get the parents of the astronauts along with the wife and the children and put them on the base because they were scared the Black September group would target a family member, and then you would, get the astronaut to make controversial statements against the government over what was going on over in the Middle East, just try to save their loved one. So Apollo 17 launched as scheduled, with the astronauts and their families securely on base being guarded. And that was the sixth and final mission of the Apollos. Now, when on Apollo 17, they met up with the Russians, and the two spacecraft connected the hatch between the two spacecraft opened, and the American astronaut reached his hand over, and the cosmonaut reached his hand over, and they both shook hands in space. And that was a joint mission between the Russian and the American space program. That was the pivotal point of it, where they shook hands. And so the astronauts came back to space, landed, and it was determined up in NASA, it was real hard, to run NASA and gather up all these astronauts and their family members. It put a strain on NASA. So James Fletcher, who was the director of NASA, said, look, we're going to, we're not going back to the moon. And because he said that the Apollo spacecraft, it was small inside, it was cramped, and he had already, really von Braun had started it. Von Braun, James Fletcher took von Braun's blueprints, and they were building the USS Enterprise. That was the space shuttle. Now, the space shuttle it was like several years from being finished. It was basically just the hull of it. And so James Fletcher, director James Fletcher, he learned a lot under von Braun. So he got the actors from Star Trek, which was Leonard Nimoy, who plays Spock. He had the actor that plays Sulu, and the mechanic Scotty, and Bones, the doctor, and the black woman that plays with the communication system. He got all those actors out front and said, they took a photo shoot of the USS Enterprise, the space shuttle, and said, this is the future of NASA, and we're going to retire the Apollo program. So they retired it, and at the time that he retired it, I was at Holloman Air Force Base. Okay, I had come back from Vietnam, Southeast Asia, and I was about 14 years old. I was pushing 15. And when I was a courier over there. I was going back and forth between Nellis Air Force Base and Holloman Air Force Base, and I would go over to Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and I would carry messages back and forth. But at this point, I'm back at Holloman Air Force Base, and I'm waiting for a mission. Tell me where I go from that point. And I had just not recent, a few months prior, I had a death in my family. So, I was a little bit depressed. I had nowhere to go. I wasn't old enough to have a driving license, so I'm stuck on the base. I'm away from my family. I'm away from my friends. And so I would, go down to the visitor center and hang out. and I seen some college girls, and you know how I try to put the make on the college girls. Hey, good looking. Let's go back and have sex, or let's go out. Try to pick them up. And that's the type of environment that I came out of in Vietnam. I just go straight up. I was real bold back then, and just try to get with someone. But Holloman Air Force Base is where they train pilots at. And at that point, everybody thought, we were winning the war. And they have a big turnover at the base, James, and is steadily training people. And one of the pilots out there was about 22 years old. And he didn't like it, a young guy like me come in and, take the girls, pick the girls up before they even get to meet them. So he started giving me a hard time, hollering through the chain link fence, slurs at me, and just giving me a hard time. And so word got around, that I had come back from Vietnam. So it had rained real hard the day before. So he had some firecrackers. He was going to throw some firecrackers over the fence and try to scare me. And when he did that, I fell to the ground and I got mud all over me. It was just a natural instinct, a reflex. And he was just, he thought it was funny, and I guess maybe looking back at it, I might have been subject to PTSD, like a lot of other young males that went over there. And so, I got up and I went back to my dormitory where I was being housed at, and showered, got the mud off of me. And a couple of officers came to my dorm, and they asked me what happened to me over in Cambodia, Vietnam. And I couldn't tell them because that's classified information. And so, but word kind of got out, they start checking around, and they saw where I was, I could channel spirits and such. And because
was this after the Predator experience in Vietnam?
James, I'm thinking it was prior to the Predator experience, because I had also channeled Mona Lisa, the one that we're getting ready to get into on Apollo 20. I had channeled her back when I was between 6 and 9 years old. I used to channel Mona Lisa. So I knew, there was like four other ones on the craft with her. But anyway, I don't want to get into Mona right this moment. I still got a little story to tell here before we get into her. So I couldn't tell the officers, what had happened over in Vietnam. And so they said, well, look, they couldn't get into my records at Nellis, but I did have some records, some old records at Holloman back, going back as early as 62, 63, I was, that's where your chimpanzees come from. During the space program, the Air Force had astronaut chimpanzees out at Holloman Air Force Base, and they needed somebody to test the emergency parachutes in the Apollo, the Gemini capsules, and so they would get the capsule up in the air, and they would drop it out of a cargo plane, and I would fly down towards the Earth and pull the emergency parachutes and open up, and the capsule would float down to the ground. That was the emergency parachutes. Chimpanzees hadn't been fully integrated into the program as of that date. Now, those pictures that you have up, just go over to the New Mexico Space Museum and where the Little Joe spacecraft is at. New Mexico Space Museum. It's right there to the east of Holloman's Air Force Base.
Over here.
No, just type in, that's it right there. See that right there? That should be it right there. Do you see that?
12 photos. Yeah.
Okay, that capsule, that spaceship is called the Little Joe. And they used to put a chimpanzee in it, and that's what the chimpanzees were first tested in. But what happened, I used to care for those chimpanzees, and when I was about 6, 7 years old, they put me in there, and so I'm the first astronaut. It wasn't Alan Shepard. I was the first one that orbited. I did a low Earth orbit in around 62, 63, if I recall. But getting back to my story, I didn't want to get off on that. Getting back to my story, they had some of my records, and they said, well, they didn't know what was going on with me, with the PTSD. So they said, well, we're going to send you up to Lovelace, a doctor. We want you to see Dr. Lovelace. Want me to go up to the Lovelace Clinic up in Albuquerque. That's where Kirkland Air Force Base is. So, because I never would talk to the psychiatrist at Holloman, so they decided to send me, up to Kirkland. Well, during this time, Jim Morrison, who was he was a singer of a rock band, The Doors. Now, Jim Morrison's father was a rear admiral in the Navy, and Jim Morrison had lived all over that part of the country. They would go from base to base and live. And so Jim Morrison knew the Holloman Air Force Base, and I had seen him a couple of times, but because of our age difference, I didn't run with Jim. Jim was like 27 years old, 26, 27 at the time, and I'm like 14, 15 years old. And Jim was real interested in spirits. Now, he wasn't the type of person into Satanism, but he was, he was very interested in ESP, spirits, and such. So Jim asked me, he said, Jimmy said, well, the first thing he asked me about, Vietnam because he was scared he was going to be sent to Vietnam. So he wanted to know what was going on over there. And I said, Jim, I said, I was telling him how, how brutal the, the Vietnamese were and the Chinese were on me. And so Jim wanted to do a song. So he went ahead and wrote the song Unknown Soldier. And I went with him and I filmed it. It later went up on YouTube. But you don't see me in it. And then Jim says to me, he says, Jimmy, I seen a bad accident back when I was a young kid about an Indian dying on the road, and it's always haunted me. And I want to communicate with the spirits. Well, I knew about, when I got over at Nellis, I knew a lot about the Paiute Indians. I didn't know a whole lot about the Apaches at Holloman Air Force Base, but I did know this is back a few years prior down at Victorian's Peak. That's where they had found some gold up in the mountain there, and there was rumored that Geronimo would hold up in that mountain where that gold was at. And the Air Force went out there and got a lot of that money out, hid it. I think they did a little episode on Unsolved Mysteries. Robert Stack narrated it. But anyway, I'm going to move on from that. I went ahead and I channeled the spirit, and I accidentally channeled Geronimo. And that night, Geronimo's about 40 or more spirits came through, and they would go out on the runway where they were storing the jets at, and you could hear, the drums beating in the background, spirits screaming, and some paranormal activity started going on in the dorm. It would ring in the dorm. Lights would flicker on and off, and apparitions will appear. And so people at Holloman Air Force Base started getting nervous, and, hey, kid, what'd you bring back with you, and I never would say anything to them. And so they went ahead and got the chaplain, and the chaplain said, well, these things happen, and kid, you need to get this kid to Lovelace Clinic and figure out what's going on with him. So, I was good and humiliated at that point. This Air Force officer was harassing me. And so when he got up in the plane to do his test fly in the morning, the spirits got in there, and in fact, Geronimo, his spirit, was the one that landed the plane. And they went out there. They had to get the fireman to get the pilot out. He had defecated and urinated on himself and was talking incoherently about spirits. And they went ahead and got him out of the Air Force. He gave him a mental, got him out. But that's just the intensity of when you channel spirits. You need to know who you're channeling. So NASA had found out about, hey, we got a guy that can channel spirits. And when I was up at Lovelace Clinic, I was explaining to them about the different Indian Native American spirits I channeled. And then I mentioned, they said, well, how long have you been doing it? I said, well, I've been doing it since I've been about 6, 7 years old. And I started talking about Mona Lisa. And I also started drawing out the strange symbols on a piece of paper that you see on the spacecraft on the moon. Well, see, nobody knew. I wasn't supposed to know that about the spacecraft or Mona Lisa. So when NASA found out that, hey, they started looking at my drawings of the writings, and they started comparing it to the spacecraft on the moon, and the letters were aligning up. It was the same writing. So what happened? I went back to Holloman Air Force Base to wait for my next assignment. After I had my you know, meeting with meeting with Lovelace. And, Jim Morrison, by that time, Jim Morrison had left, the area. He had moved on to Paris, France. He would later die of an overdose about a year or two later. But the door opened one day when I was at that dorm, and this guy walked in. He said, "Kid, would you like a job in transportation?" And, being broke and everything, I said, "Sure." So I didn't know it, but that was one of the astronauts that I would be working with in the future. So, at first we started off um, going from the United States to Europe, and then from Europe um, go down to off the coast of Africa, and then from there going down into Central Africa. And we had a seaplane. So I landed with this went on for several months. I landed in a lake. Let me give you. I need you to go to YouTube. Go to Google Earth right now, if you would, James. I'm going to show you where William Rutledge lives at.
Yeah. By the way, did Jim Morrison's dad, considering that he was an admiral in the military, did he have ties with the secret space program?
I don't know. I do know that I do know that he was pretty high up. It's quite possible he did, but it was me hanging around Jim Morrison and the song, the protest song, The Unknown Soldier. Everybody, the NASA crowd is a young crowd. It's a jet set crowd. And I think that's when they started taking notice of me. It was inadvertently, but I think that's when they first really started watching me. But get to Google Earth right this moment. I'm going to show you
What do you want me to look up?
Go to Google Earth and type in Gomer, Gome. Let me spell it here. Goma, Africa. Goma, Africa. And I need to look at it on your screen there.
Yeah, sure. It's a Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, yeah, it's but can you show it on the screen where we can get down close, get on satellite, not map, but satellite.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, there it is.
Get a little closer.
Closer.
Wait a second. Go to the red part. Now go north. Go north. Don't tighten. Don't go any closer. Go north now. Go about 9 miles north.
Well, I can't tell how many miles I'm going here.
Pull it down.
Keep going.
Keep going.
This is like in the middle of the Congo.
All right. Right up in there. Tighten it up a little bit.
Well, there's like little craters in here.
Okay. Go. Yeah, you see that crater there? That's a volcano. All right, now go back south of that. Go back to Gomer.
Yeah.
Go back to the water.
Yeah.
Now, pan to your right. Pan down.
What are we looking at here?
Go. You're looking for the name of the. I'm going to spell it for you. Giseny.
GISEN.
Giseny.
And that's in Rwanda.
No, that's in Rwanda. Excuse me. It's next door to Goma. That little line there divides the line that goes in the lake divides the Republic of the Congo's to the left, Rwanda's to the right. Now that's here. You see, yeah, it's that right, that little red thing right there.
Yeah.
Get closer to the right. That's where, right there, that's where William Rutledge lives at. Okay?
So, but he was doing missions in the United States at Vandenberg.
Yes, but I'm getting to it right now. What happened? Now, let me back up. Let me tell you a little history about the area. When I landed on that lake back in the 70s, there were some, they had been fighting over there. There'd been a civil war over there where Rwanda, the Rwandans and the Republic of Congo, they were fighting up towards that volcano. All right. And also, that area is important because the Air Force, when they would get their chimpanzees out of Africa, that's where they were going to get the astronaut chimpanzees. Is in that general area north of that town, those villages. Now, that area, if you go back and you watch the movie Outbreak, where actor Dustin Hoffman and Donald Sutherland, it's about a chimpanzee it's about a chimp that has Ebola, and it spreads and it causes a major outbreak and a lot of people die. Now,
also looks like Kevin Spacey's in it too, and he's connected to Monarch with Paul Serene.
I didn't know that about him. But anyway, now Morgan Freeman lives not very far from me. Is from a town not very far from where I live at.
Was he Jimi Hendrix back in the day? Then he faked his death.
I don't know. I know Morgan Freeman is not. He grew up not far from where I live, but I don't want to get off on him right yet.
Okay.
We got a lot to cover here, but what I'm trying to say is the military weaponized Ebola. So they got, not only did we get our space chimps from that area, we also get our Ebola virus from that area. Now, another important film to understand is the movie Congo. Now, Congo is about a gorilla that can communicate. It's got a band on his arm, and they land in Uganda, which is a nation next to Rwanda there, but they land and they go in a jungle, and they find this diamond mined, and Joe Don Baker is he wants to get this diamond to put into a laser to shoot down a satellite. So yeah, I'm just trying to, bring the story to your attention here. These apes are modified. All right, well, let me get back. I'm going to lay that.
Are you just saying this is based on a true story? This movie?
Well, kind of. We're just going to lay that to the side. It's not all true, but there's some truth to it. We're going to lay that to the side for a minute. We're going to get back now to when I had landed on that lake with that a boat plane. The first time that I landed on that lake, I landed just right off from where William Rutledge lived. I landed on the lake, and there was about 40 or so soldiers with rifles, and they had these duffel bags, 3-foot, 4-foot duffel bags, like the military gives you. You put your clothes in. Everybody gets them. They had about, I want to say, around about 22 to 27 of these duffel bags, and they were guarding these duffel bags. And but anyway, my officer said, "Look, you need to load these duffel bags onto the plane, and you have to distribute the weight evenly, because the plane would tilt, if the weight's not just distributed right." So I grabbed a hold of the duffel bags, and he had to go into town. He had to go on up into town, so I stayed on the boat. But anyway, when I saw this Jeep come down to the waterway, and the Jeep looked real bad. I mean, it was beat up, It looked real bad. I didn't know they had been fighting back up in there. But what it was, the guy that was driving the Jeep was William Rutledge. And I didn't get to talk to him at that point, James. I just, I had to take care of the duffel bags. So when I was loading the duffel bags, one of them was a little bit dry rotted, and it broke. And the duffel bags, I thought I was handling gravel. I mean, they were packed. It felt like I was picking up pea gravel. But when the bag, a little 2-3 inch tear occurred on the side by the handle, and some diamonds fell out of the duffel bag. So I went to the toolbox. I got some duct tape. I put the diamonds back in. I patched it, and And when the intelligence officer came back after William Rutledge brought him back, we got in a plane, we took off, and I told the intelligence officer, I said, look, I know we're transporting diamonds. And he just looked over and smiled at me, you know. And but what happened, we would make several more trips back to that part of Africa. And so one day, I think it's about about the third or fourth trip that I made back, he said, look, I need you to come ashore and you're going to come with me and we want to talk to you. I said, okay. And so William Rutledge picked me up. I get in the back of the Jeep. William's in the front driving. The other intelligence officer, he's in the front seat. And we drive on up about 5 or 6 miles from the beach area. And we go to where William lives. And we went in the backyard. And I'm in the backyard. And they said, do you want a beer? And I said, yeah, you know, I'm at this point, I'm about 17, 18 years old, you know, so a couple of years has passed, you know. And he said, he asked me what I thought of religion. And I thought that was an odd question, you know. Why? I thought to myself, why does this guy want to know about my religion? I said, well, I'm Paiute. And the other guy that I was with told William, he said, well, that's Native American beliefs. And so I didn't finish my beer. I drank about half of it, you know. I drank about half the beer. Um, and this black woman came out the back door of the house into the backyard. And she kind of looked at me, you know. But what it was, where William had a girlfriend. William is white, and that was his girlfriend who was black. She's from the Republic of Congo. Okay, so I didn't say anything, you know. I just looked at him, you know.
Do you have a picture of William that you could send me?
No, I don't, James. I wished I do, but that's. I'm sure the name is alias, like my name Jimmy is alias. We don't use our real names. Uh, but that's definitely where he lived at, because it surfaced on the internet a few years ago, and it was a picture of the house. An Italian journalist went to Africa, and it was the same house that was in the picture. So um, we know about what his house looked like. Uh, but anyway, I get back to the United States, you know, and I'm told when I got back, they said, you have a job now at NASA. And I thought, well, I knew NASA was looking at me, but I didn't know why NASA was looking at me. And what it was, what had happened, uh, Apollo 18, they had shot up. Apollo 18 was a secret mission. They had gotten into an old, well, not the old, they had gotten into an Apollo spacecraft, and they shot it up, and they had another um, spacecraft which was Russian. Now, I didn't know anything about this, about the Apollo 18 mission, and I didn't know anything about the cosmonaut mission. I knew about the Apollo 17 where they met up and they shook, but I thought the program was over at that point. But what had happened, they'd had they had an accident up on the moon, and they said, "Look, we need somebody to go to the moon. We've had an accident up there."
And which Apollo mission was that had the accident?
This was Apollo 18 was one that had the accident. All right, Apollo 19 was the one that went for the rescue. Apollo 19 went to the rescue, Apollo 18. And Apollo, I believe it was Apollo 19 that had the Soviet spacecraft was in tow. If not, then it might have been the Apollo 18. I'm not real sure which one it was, but
so
they were,
NASA was working with Soviets at this point.
yeah, they were working, but that was classified. Now, I do know that when JFK was assassinated, about a few days before he was assassinated, he angered a lot of people down in NASA because he wanted to share technology with the Russians, and von Braun didn't like that. The old school didn't like it, didn't think it was wise. And so they had to wait till von Braun had retired before they could, mount such a mission. So they had to occur under James Fletcher, the director of NASA, So, but what had happened, I want to get back to this mission here. They said that they told me that there was some type of a disease similar to Ebola or either leprosy had broken out onto the spacecraft, and that I was not to enter at all. I was not to enter the spacecraft, but that they had an instrument called the DR5. This is a scientific instrument. It's about the size of a dishwasher, and about the height of a dishwasher. And the astronaut, they take it and they lay it out beside the spacecraft. It's supposed to send back data to Earth. Well, what had happened, these astronauts, when they were, they couldn't bring them home, the Apollo 18, they couldn't bring them home. And what happened was, it was a real hard death with these astronauts, and it was a real low blow to NASA, because they had to witness these men ran out of oxygen and they suffocated to death. Okay. And the thing about religion, they wanted, they did, in other words, to abandon an astronaut, how do you pray with an astronaut you're going to abandon, So they wanted somebody who did not hold religious views. And two, if there were an alien encounter on the moon, they did not want to see an astronaut kneel down to a false god. Okay, so in other words, if it's an alien, they want you to kill it if it's hostile, not just to get on your knees and surrender to an alien. So that was the reason why they wanted me. Now, William Rutledge is an exception. I mean, excuse me, I'm the exception. All the astronauts were atheists except me. All the astronauts that were on 18, 19, 20 were atheists. And the only reason they ended up with me was because, one, I was channeling Mona. Two, they said, well, he's got the religion of the savage. Okay. He's got the religion of the savage. And so that was the only reason I was ever picked. There was nothing else they could do. But anyway, getting back to my story, I went up to the moon on Apollo 20. And on Apollo 20, there's two spacecraft again launched from launched from Vandenberg base. There's two spacecraft. The first one had a 24-hour head start on me. William Rutledge and that crew was in the first spacecraft that took off. I took off 24 hours later in the second spacecraft, so I'm telling him. And if you see, I think there's a video on YouTube where William Rutledge is pointing his camera outside, and you see a light go around his spacecraft. Well, that's the spacecraft I'm in. I'm in the second one. But William went down first, and I'm still up orbiting the moon in the second craft. So as we go around the dark side of the moon, where the Apollo 18 is at, I see a spacecraft, a derelict spacecraft, which was Apollo 19. It's in orbit. It's dead, but it's in a death roll. But it's in orbit, but it's turning like a corkscrew. So, my mission was to do a spacewalk, get out of my spacecraft, throw a grappling hook onto Apollo 19, and it's going to pull me like you take a thread on a thimble. If you roll a thread out of a thimble, you can roll it into a thimble. So the theory was, I'm going to throw a grappling hook out, and as the spacecraft turns around slowly, it's going to pull me in. It's going to winch me in, and I'm going to grab a hold of the spacecraft that way. So for about 2.5 hours, I watched the spacecraft slowly turning in a circle, corkscrew wise. And I went ahead and I made my spacewalk, and I was pulled in with the rope onto the derelict spacecraft. And when I popped the hatch in and I got in there, I find a dead female astronaut. And it was the same woman that was in the backyard of William Rutledge. And come to find out, she was an engineer. She designed the hatch where the American spacecraft and the Soviet spacecraft connects, that have a special hatch. And she was the engineer that designed the hatch. That's why she was with William Rutledge. And she was dead. And the spacecraft that she was in, she had used up all of her fuel. Now, my mission was to break the spacecraft apart. Both spacecraft, Apollo 19, you're looking at around about 60 foot. You got the lunar module, you got the command module, you got all that hooked up. So what I did, I blew the two spacecraft apart. Instead of having two spacecraft, I only got the lunar module to turn around. And I was able to stop it from its spin, and I was able to bring the lunar module 19 down to the surface. And when I landed where Apollo 18 was at. And when I got out, that's when I found the flag was laying on the ground. The Land Rover had been turned over. There had been some type of disturbance on the Apollo 18. And I had been ordered, not to look in or not to enter that spacecraft. And I went ahead and, flipped on the DR5, the space instruments that NASA was needing. But because when I was coming down, I had also spotted a Soviet spacecraft about a half a mile away from Apollo 18. So I had to go.
So that was the one where the Russians participated in 18.
Well, that's the question. I don't know, was it the 18 or 19? I just know that the Russians had landed also. So I get over there, I take the Land Rover, I pushed it back over. It's on two wheels. It was on its side. And I pushed it back over, and I drove it over to the Soviet spacecraft. And when I got over there, the hatch on the Soviet spacecraft was opened, which is unusual. And I got out and I looked around, and I see some footprints, where the cosmonaut had, walked off. But I went ahead and climbed on up into the Soviet spacecraft and got on up in there, and the whole thing was torn to pieces, like somebody had been in there fighting. The instruments were all tore up in the spacecraft, and there's blood all over the place.
And how long was it that this was actually incapacitated, and then when you got there?
I don't know, James. All I know was that I know somebody was murdered in it. I felt I had walked. I thought at first, okay, well, the crew has gone cabin fever, like astronauts, go crazy or something. Well, excuse me, cosmonauts go crazy or something. And I thought the cosmonauts had gotten into a fight or something, and one might have took his pickaxe and kill the other one. That was my first thought about the cosmonauts, that they had been fighting. But there was nobody in it, just a lot of blood, like about 4 or 5, at least over the entire body of somebody drained out in there. And they purposely disabled the craft, like they were not wanting the craft to take off. Okay, so apparently the cosmonaut disabled his own spacecraft. All right, so I got out of the Soviet craft, and I noticed there was no blood. There wasn't a drop of blood outside the craft, but there's a pool of blood in the craft. And I'm looking at it and I'm real dumbfounded. I can't figure out, well, this much blood, there should be blood outside the craft.
And what about the body? Where's the body?
That was the second thing that confused me. Where are the bodies at? I could not find the bodies of the cosmonauts. So I had seen where one of the cosmonauts had walked off, and I followed the tracks. There was a crater about 1/10 of a mile from where the cosmonauts had landed their spacecraft. So I followed the cosmonaut to the footprints to the edge of the crater, and as I went down into the crater, part of the crater was illuminated, part of it was not. So it went down a good little ways. And I went down maybe about 75, 80 feet into the crater, and there was his pickaxe laying next to a rock, and it was covered in blood. Okay, so I have footprints that I see the pickaxe laying down there. I'm going to continue to follow his footsteps into the dark part of the crater. And when I entered the dark part of the crater, it was really cold. I mean, it's like I could, it was real cold. So I didn't want to cut the heat up on my suit, because if you do that, you're pulling more energy away from your power pack. So
I want to pause you, Jimmy. This is a question I also have. In the footage in front of you on the screenshot, there's a patch that shows 3 different vessels. So did the Apollo 20 actually look like the standard lunar capsule and the landing?
I can't see. I can't make.
Okay, all right.
It's too blurred up there, James.
Maybe I could try to make this bigger. Are you able to see that?
I'm able to see that, but I don't believe that patch is legitimate.
Okay, somebody. All right. And what about these names, Rutledge, Snyder, and Linoff?
Rutledge is familiar. The Linoff, I think he's a cosmonaut. I did not meet him because Rutledge was in the craft, the first craft, the lead craft. I don't know. I wasn't part of that launch. Okay, I'm in the craft behind him. I'm telling that I'm telling his craft.
Were you in some kind of UFO technology secret, or did it actually look like the Apollo tech?
I'm sorry, you lost me there.
Did it look like some kind of secret classified technology, or was it actual pieces from the Apollo mission, from the previous ones? Your ship, your vessel that you were in.
It was Apollo. It was Apollo vessel.
Well, can you comment about the Van Allen?
I want to get to finish my story. I want to answer your questions,
okay,
but we'll get bogged down in the questions before we finish the story here. All right, getting back to the story. So I walk down into the crater, and I find this cosmonaut. He is laying on his side, and I turn him over, and I can't really, I have some light from my coming out, I turn on my headlight, where I could see something. But anyway, I went ahead and grabbed him, and I pulled him up out of the crater, and he's like an ice cube. He is frozen solid. Okay. And I went ahead and dragged him up to the edge of the crater, and I laid him on his back where I can get a good look at him with in the lunar light. And his face shield is broken, in an outward position. The cosmonaut's skin, some type of a cellular damage to his skin. It looked like his skin had started to peel off of his face. And he had, blood. When you die, your blood has a tendency to pull up on one area. Well, cause the moon doesn't have much gravity, it wasn't pronounced as much on him. So I don't know how much blood he had in him, because the weight of the moon pulls the blood to one side of the body, not as great as it does here on Earth. But he had undergone some cellular damage, like his skin was trying to peel off. So I remember when I was down in the crater, before I pulled him out, I had saw a cave down there. And I remember going over towards it. What had happened, I have some lost time here. All right. I'll get into this at the end of the story. We still have some more information to cover here about the lost time and what happened to me down in the crater when I, was trying to pull this cosmonaut out. So I'm going to leave that to the side for a minute. I'm going to go to the part where I'm back into the Land Rover, and I drive back with the Land Rover, and I go back and I head on to where William Rutledge's coordinates is at. I have his coordinates. So I've already burned up some of my, my oxygen and some of my battery pack. But they give you a little extra anyway. I just was not supposed to have gone over to where the cosmonauts were at. I was supposed to have only done, cut on the instrument where the Apollo 18 craft was at. So I had a little catch-up time to do. So I was a little late getting to to meet up with William Rutledge and them. But I eventually got to where William Rutledge was at. And what had happened, William Rutledge had gotten Mona, and they were putting her into the lunar module just about the time that I was pulling up. Okay. And they'd already taken her clothes off.
Is this footage that was filmed by William and you? Is that what
They were filming her. They were filming her. I remember her laying there and they filming her.
But, okay.
I remember they were filming her there. They had
on
taken,
the ship.
Now that's not her. That's another one. This woman here, if I recall, had her head cut off. I found her. She was decapitated. Her head was found underneath some of the up under part of the spacecraft outer outer wall.
And was it frozen from the
Yes, they was kind of frozen. It was similar to the cosmonaut. It was she was frozen. Okay, perfectly preserved but frozen.
And what are these bone things on her face?
Well, they're hollow. They're filled with a fluid. The fluid is kind of like it's kind of oily in a way, but it's I would say something very similar to it keeps her supposed to keep it's supposed to. It's like embalming fluid in a way. It's got her kind of in suspended animation. Is what I'm trying to say there. Now that's Mona there.
Okay, so she still had her heartbeat.
No, you see that little thing on her head there,
In her third eye area.
her third eye.
Yeah, what is that?
Well, that's an organ that flashes if she's communicating with you. If that would flash like a flashlight, she communicates telepathically. It'll flash up like a strobe when she's talking. I wanna get back before we get too far into her. I want to get back to the spacecraft. Okay. So when I get to where William's at, I'm talking to William, and I'm not talking to the other astronauts because I'm on a different I'm on a different channel, but I can talk to William, but I'm not talking to the other astronauts because they're on separate channels. Okay, even though they're in the same spacecraft that I'm in, I'm talking directly to William, and see that right there, they're trying to clean her up, but getting back to the derelict spacecraft, I went into the derelict spacecraft.
But she is alive at this point.
She's not dead and she's not alive. She's in some type of like a deep sleep, similar to a coma. She has brain waves. You can hook a EKG up to her,
and
she has brain waves.
At this point, were you actually on the vessel with this doing this footage, or did you take her on the Apollo ship with this footage?
That footage there was taken on the Apollo craft.
Was there a breathable atmosphere on the ship?
The Apollo, yeah.
No,
not on her ship. No, her ship has been damaged. I got a real good look. I got into the craft. I went all into her craft. It's every bit the size of a Boeing. It's bigger than a big Boeing jet. It's much bigger. Right where Mona sat at, Mona was at the flight controls when she was found. And Mona, right above her, they had went through a rock storm. Meteorites had hit the top of the spacecraft, had pierced the hull. They lost compression, and the ship was damaged. That's why it ended up on the moon. In the cargo bay of the craft, there was foliage in there. There was plants in there. Now, let me tell you an odd story here. Of course, it's all odd. I'm going to go back to the year 1803. Fishermen in Japan, what is right now the Itachi region of Japan, that's where Fukushima, just south of where the Fukushima nuclear power plant's, James. They fished a strange woman out of the sea. She couldn't speak their language. And I believe, and this is just my belief, I believe Mona has been to Earth and that the foliage that was in that craft was either from Earth or going to Earth. Now, if we go back 50,000 years ago, Earth was covered in ice. All right, and um, and when the ice thawed, you know, you had um, foliage trees um, grew into jungles. I believe either Mona, now Mona, that craft, William Rutledge claims that the craft crashed 1.2 billion years ago. I don't buy that. What it is, 1.2 billion years ago, the crater that the craft was in was formed by a meteorite hit 1.2 billion years ago. My research is that she's been there for about 42,000 years. Because when I would channel her, Mona told me that that she had been there for around about 42,000 years. Now I presume that to be Earth years, and I believe that the foliage that was in that craft came from that part of the world that she was 42,000 years ago. Either she's transporting plants or either she's come to Earth to collect plants after the Ice Age, and that somehow or another on her return trip back, she encountered a meteorite storm that damaged the craft. Okay, now that's my belief. And in the craft was these strange ceramic blocks. They're like little black pyramids that was in there. I handled some of them, but that is my belief here is that Mona has two functions. One, she's a botanist. She collects flowers and plants. She's also she's duly trained. She's a pilot. She's a pilot. Now, I believe her origin is to be she's Oriental. There's some we're looking at is some type of a lost link here. We're looking at a hybrid. We're looking at a humanoid here that is of Oriental origin. I believe that she is probably from. I wouldn't doubt if she's somewhere from around the Philippines or maybe Vietnam, or maybe she is from Japan, but she's somewhere close enough that she ended up in the water. Okay.
What do you mean end up in the water?
Well, the 1803 sighting was of a woman, a strange woman that washes ashore by what is presently the Fukushima nuclear power plants. Now, behind the Fukushima power plants is a mountain where there's been a lot of UFO activity. That's the Japan's Roswell area, or their sacred mountain, where there's been a lot of UFO activity throughout history.
Okay, so at this point, how did you actually transport her onto the ship if there's no atmosphere in space? Did you put her in a spacesuit or?
I did not transport her. I was late getting there because I was tied up looking at these cosmonauts, what had happened to the cosmonauts. Okay. By the time I got there, William Rutledge and his crew were the ones that actually went in and lifted her up out of the flight chair. They were the ones, as they had just got her in the door and they were starting to undress her to examine her. They were trying to find out what damage she had. Okay. They didn't find any damage. What it is, when she crashed, she injured herself. So I believe the the uh, the strange tubes that are on her face, she's been put in stasis. Okay, she's like in suspended animation.
Does her
Okay,
does her body have the natural ability to do that, or was there some kind of AI technology on the ship that automatically saved her life?
James. At this point, the only thing I know is I tried to get into her computer. Now, we took the computer out. There was a computer by the flight chair. I tried to access it. Um, and I was, I never was able. The only thing I could figure out, I got some stuff out of the computer that confirmed that it did go down around about 42,000 years ago. But as far as what actually happened, like a black box, like you have on a jet plane that records everything, I did not get into that part. Okay. Um, maybe there wasn't. Maybe the black box was taken. The crew, four male crew members did survive that crash, and they left going to. There was some hills or ridges, maybe about 2 miles from the site, and I believe they went there because they probably thought there was a cave up in that part, you know. So those four males left, they never returned. Now, I've channeled and communicate with three of the four. The fourth one would never talk to me. And so three of them survived. They later died. She, I don't know how.
How are you able to communicate with them if they have already died?
They put her
Jimmy.
telepathically.
Oh,
Telepathically.
back in time. There's no time limit to telepathic communication.
No, there's no time limit. You can go back and forward excuse me.
Well, why? Maybe
Channeling.
maybe the folks over in Darkfleet who have access to time travel tech could go back and rescue them.
James, you had to have an exact time. You had to have an exact coordination. Okay, we don't have an exact time or coordination. What we have is the aftermath of it. Okay. Right now she's on Earth. She's being studied at Area 51.
Were they able to revive her, get her out of stasis?
No, she's still in stasis. When I would go to Area 51, I could put my hand over her forehead and I could communicate with her better that way. But when I was a little boy, I could do it without putting my hand on her forehead. As you grow older, you kind of you get away from it. I don't channel like I did when I was younger. So what I do in my later years, I would just put my hand on somebody and communicate that way. Have you ever seen a Vulcan? If you watch Star Trek, they take their hands, they split them, and they
Yeah.
put the hands on the forehead, and they're able to communicate that way. Well, that's very similar to what I was doing with her.
Here's a good question from Mike Freeman. The computer system, how are you able to verify the 42,000 year timeline? And
She told me.
Okay. And how did you interface with the computer system?
I was able to put my hand on it and telepathically communicate with the computer. But on the other hand, there's parts of the computer that's locked up or locked off. It's kind of like, do you have, just like you can use your computer, but if you don't have a password, you can't get into the certain parts of the computer. Okay. If I don't know I can use your computer, but if I don't know your password, I can't get in sections of your computer. Well, that's the same way with her computer, or the computer on her craft. Now, those strange writings on the outside of the craft are to ward off evil spirits. They're kind of like good luck symbols.
Those
Yes,
sigils.
they're religious symbols.
Okay. Um, and
That's,
so you can confirm this footage is real. This is what it actually looked like.
it's real.
Now you said the craft is actually in a corkscrew position, but this craft looks like it's on.
No, I didn't say it was in a corkscrew. I said the Apollo 19 was in a corkscrew when it was up in space. It
Okay.
was turning in on a barrel.
Okay.
I
Right.
brought down the lunar module onto the moon is what
Well,
I did.
can you comment about from Noli Love? Why isn't she dead by now? If she's in stasis for 42,000 years, you would think, if not enough calories, the body would just deteriorate.
When you're in stasis, You can stay for indefinitely.
Okay. All right. So yeah. All right. Well,
That's part of the control panel there.
can you comment about this? What did she tell you about what happened to the craft?
She told me that the radar system is in the nose of the craft, and when they were flying through space, that the meteorites came from the top down. There's no radar on the top of the craft. They did not know that they had rocks coming from that angle. Their radar is primary on the frontal part of the craft. And when it hit, it knocked out some vital cables. They decompressed, and they, like I said, they descended. They lost control, and they skidded into the crater. The crater has been there for 1.2 billion years. They can tell by the rocks that created that crater. However, she's only been in that crater 42,000 years.
All right. Can you comment what she said about the cathedral city? What was that about?
The city is just something that was next to it. Now, whether they were trying to land there for help, I don't know. They're definitely are very close together. Now, where you see that dome, not far from that dome, we now have an underground base there. We have a portable nuclear reactor there, and you go there and you stay there about 4 or 5 Earth days, and then you decompress, and you can take a small oxygen tank, similar like you have a hose put in your nose at the hospital where you can breathe oxygen. You can actually walk around on the moon if you have air, but you have to remember, when it gets cold, when it gets dark, it gets extremely cold. You can't get in anything you can't walk into a shuttle without a suit. And there is parts of the moon that has high radiation. Some parts are higher than others. So you don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the top of the moon because you're being bombarded by radiation.
All right, so it's not a full vacuum on the moon. There is an atmosphere.
There's a slight atmosphere. It's kind of like if you went down into the crater, you may have a little more oxygen down there, but it would be very thin. It'd be like if you're on Mount Everest. You know, you've seen people, they had to have breather tanks up there, but it's very, very thin.
Yeah, can you comment about what the actual cloud? I mean, what did the sky look like during the daytime? Was it just black like we see in the
No,
footage?
it's stars everywhere. When you see uh, there's no stars, that means somebody's doctored up on the picture.
All right, and can you comment about life forms?
Well, let me get back to the life form. It was only 2 or 3 years after the mission was over that I started having flashbacks. My memory started to come back to me. And what had happened when I was down in the crater trying to get this cosmonaut back up, I had seen some flashes of light down in the crater. I went deeper into the crater to the side where there was an opening, and basically it led to an underground chamber. I never was able to get into it because it was real thin. But what had happened when I dragged this cosmonaut back up out of the crater, when I got him just on the very edge of the crater, I looked over my shoulder and I had a tall gray that had followed me up out of the crater. And I made contact. There was like about a 7 foot tall gray. And he asked me what I was doing there. And I said, well, I had landed and that we were exploring the area. He said, I live here and I do not want you here. And he said, I want you to leave. And I said, and I told, this is how the story about, hey, they don't want you back at the moon. It actually happened with me. And the tall gray was very territorial. He wasn't aggressive towards me, but he made it very clear that he did not want us there. And now whether that gray attacked or killed the cosmonauts, I don't know. I do know that the footprints of a gray was outside of the Apollo 18 spacecraft, and that the flag was torn down, excuse me, and the Land Rover was tore over. So apparently, I believe it was that same gray that went up there and was tearing the place up while the astronauts were dying on the inside. Now, the gray did not kill those astronauts. They died of a lack of oxygen. Now, what happened to the Cosmic astronauts, I don't know. Maybe the gray murdered the cosmonauts. Then again, maybe the cosmonauts went stir crazy and they got into the fight and one picked the other one to death. But I never did find the second cosmonaut's body. I only found one. So how, and there's questions to this day, is how did they get the body out of the spacecraft with there's no blood below the spacecraft and you only see one cosmonaut's footprint leading off? It's no deeper than my footprint. If he'd have carried the other cosmonaut, it'd have been much deeper. His footprint would have been much deeper. So I don't understand it to this day. What happened? What happened in that spacecraft? Now maybe um, there's a black box in the Soviet spacecraft that could be accessed, that may had recorded the killings, the killing that took place in there, or the mishap that took place. I did not access the Soviet spacecraft black box.
And William never told you years later what happened.
What now?
Did William ever inform you what happened about the black box?
William, no one knew about that until I just talked to you about it.
Why didn't you tell William what was going on with the Russians?
Because one thing, William had another Russian cosmonaut that was flying with him in the Apollo spacecraft. Okay, I did, until I could be debriefed on it, I did not share that with him. Okay, don't you think it's controversial, the Russians flying along with the Americans on an Apollo spacecraft? Okay, Von Braun would not have liked it. So that's why I didn't share it with William.
Okay. Well, can you comment about this these artifacts that we're looking at? Do you have any information about who built this city?
Well, the city is real. There's ruins. There's all sorts of stuff on the moon. NASA routinely whitewashes it out of the picture. It's owed now for the crater to be 1.2 billion years old. I would think the city was built after the crater was formed. But I believe Mona, I believe the city was there when Mona crashed 42,000 years ago. I believe that when they got hit by the meteorites, they were trying to land to make it to that city.
Okay, and can you comment about the occupants that might have lived there?
That I don't know.
Were they bigger than a standard size human height, or were they giants?
James, the city has never been, as far as archaeological work, none of that's never taken place. There is, behind that cathedral, you can go down into the underside of it. It protects you from the radiation, and there's a power source down there. There's a small nuclear reactor that was brought to the moon. It was not found there. It was brought to the moon, a small modular nuclear reactor. And we use that area, that city there, or the remains of that city, for as we use that there. There are astronauts that go there, and just like like if you dive real deep into the ocean, if you come up, you get the bends. Well, when you get to the moon, you have to lower the pressure so your body can adjust to that little bit of oxygen that's on the moon, or you'll get the bends. And you stay down into the underground for about 3 to 4 days, and the oxygen is slowly stabilizes to atmosphere out there, and then you're able to get, you don't have to have your suit on. You can take a small tank with tubes, put it on your face, the tubes I mean, and you can walk around. So all the bulky the big air tanks on the back, that's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need that. You just need to let your body, stabilize uh, to adjust. But yeah, you can move around on the moon. But like I said, you don't want to go into the dark spots because I mean, there's probably 75 to 100 degrees below zero in the dark spot, and then the light is warmer, very warm.
So that's why it'd be very dangerous to go wander into those ruins to explore.
Well, you can go into the runs, just like if you get into the dark spots of the runs, you want to have some. You definitely need a suit on, but on the outside of it, with the moon, with the sun is, you get a little sunlight. It's warm. Um, I'm comparing it to going down in the crater. It gets real cold. It's just like you go outside and you don't have a jacket on or shoes on, and you walk around in the snow, and you come in and your fingers are feeling tight and they're itching, and they're about to bust. You're real cold. That's how I explain it.
And can the spacesuits survive all the radiation?
You can take. It's not really good for long. I don't think it's very good for long range. To stay on the moon long range on the surface. Now, there's parts of the moon, the actual lunar soil is more radioactive than other parts of the lunar soil. Um, I would say that when we live on Earth, we're protected by ozone layer, and we have clouds and stuff like that, and trees. You don't have that on the moon. You don't have an ozone layer on the moon. It's just there's radiation from Earth, from the Van Allen radiation belt, and it comes down on you. Well, you can take some radiation, but you wouldn't want real long, prolonged radiation.
So, what do you think about this statement here that the Van Allen radiation belt lethal dose is only 10 minutes exposure? It's equivalent to being in a microwave oven.
I believe I kind of have a belief in that statement, but on the other hand, um, if you take gamma radiation, you can take a piece of paper. You have alpha and gamma radiation. You have to. The more thicker the wall is, like a 1 foot wall is better than a 2 foot wall. Excuse me, a 2 foot wall is better than a 1 foot wall, as far as knocking radiation off.
Okay, and can you comment about the Apollo vessels were able to survive the Van Allen belt because they had shielding? Do you have any information about the shielding they used?
James, it's just regular aluminum shielding. You have to remember we weren't gone that long. Um, what, 5, 6 days or so? We weren't gone that long. I'm talking long range exposures. Okay. Um, Now we have had, there has been aliens recovered, and some of the, I know one alien species, they had not this one I'm talking about, but I do know one alien species, they would take like a sleeping bag, and it was like lined with lead, and they would get in it and zip it up. Uh, so I mean, anything lead impregnated blanket, would do the same thing. If you took a lead impregnated blanket, all right, if you go to the hospital and you want to take an X-ray, and they tell you to stand up next to a wall, and the wall's got sheetrock in it, well, the X-ray would go through the sheetrock. But if you impregnated the sheetrock with lead pigments, lead dust, then the radiation wouldn't go through the sheetrock. So the theory is impregnated lead blankets would shield you to a degree.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. How about this? So as far as the U.S. not going back to the moon, weren't they told back? It might have been Apollo 13, when the solar warden craft were on the edge of the crater, and they told the astronauts that they're not allowed to be on the moon. So,
Are you referring to Apollo 11?
oh yeah, Apollo 11. So is that
What?
the one with the ones that are on the crater?
Well, let me clarify that. First of all, that was me in that craft with Charlie. Charlie's he's a white male, but he is a half breed. He's half tall gray. We have nearly 20 of them out at Nellis. They're all clones, but Charlie's my friend. When Buzz Aldrin was going to land on the moon, I was at Nellis Air Force Base, and Charlie got all excited about it. So we wanted to be there to see history in the making. So we flew up to the moon, and I'm standing on the edge of the crater looking down at Buzz Aldrin, walking around. And Buzz Aldrin could see us, and that was the Apollo astronauts calling in about the flying saucers. Well, we were just there to watch, That's all it was. Nobody was told not.
And can you confirm
weren't off.
the drawing on the top right? That's what it looked like. Those vessels. I'm assuming it was Solar Warden
I have never seen that
drawing. That's
No.
William Tompkins.
I'd never seen the drawing. I can't confirm anything about that.
But is that what it looked like for you when you're in the crater?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. It was just a flying saucer. It was a classical shape flying saucer. Nothing.
Okay.
I don't know where that came from. That picture there.
All right. So well, let's move on to another question here. Did you see any Nazi bases on the moon?
We have one there, but I did not. As far as the conversation goes, I've only been to it once, and the closest that I know of is what you were looking at, what we were just looking at.
All right. Did you ever visit Lunar Operations Command or Lunar Space Command or Lunar Operations or Lunar Command, whatever they called it?
That's what we're looking at. What you were looking at is what I would say that is Lunar Command that you just had up.
Those vessels that were parked on the crater were probably stationed at Lunar Command.
No, I don't know anything about those vessels, and I don't know anything other than if you're referring as Lunar Command, well, then that picture we had up of the city, that would be Lunar Command. But I don't know anything about the vessels and that artificial.
I thought Lunar Command was based in the Jules Verne crater. Do you have any information on what crater it was?
No, only thing that I know of is what that ancient alien city that you had by where the Mona Lisa was recovered at. That's the only thing that I know. The only the city that I know of. Now there are some other ruins on the moon, but now that's the one that we're currently we have underground decompression chamber there. Now there is a dome city, a glass dome city. There's about 6 or 7 of them up there, 7 or 8 of them up there. And at all the domes are cracked, the glasses are cracked, but there's one dome city where the glass only has maybe about 30 feet that's cracked. It was repaired. And we have one glass city other than what you're looking at there at a completely different location. We have some people at that city there, the dome one. But other than for that one and this one in the picture, those are only 2 that I know of anybody being at.
All right, thank you. So I guess let's move on to the next question. GV, you had a great question. I might just throw this in here. Do you have any information about the Russian Lunochod rover and the unscheduled transmission?
Yeah.
What can you tell us, the audience, what was that unscheduled transmission? What was that about?
Well, they've lost. The Soviets have lost. They claim to have lost a rover up there. That rover was not lost. That's what they claim. That was one of their secret space missions. So the Kremlin's lying to the Russian people. Just like NASA kind of lied, well, they also lie to their people about their space program as well. It was not lost.
Okay, so what they're working with the Red Rising Star. That's the name of the Soviet secret space program.
Who is they?
The Soviets, the Russians at this point.
James, I can only comment on what happened during my time. I mean that it may be so now, it may be not. I don't know what's going on right now. I can only talk of the actual missions that I've been on. But to clarify a little bit, both the Russians and the United States have lost men on the moon, and neither one is going to admit to it for pride.
Okay, how many missions do you think were between the U.S. and USSR at this point?
Well, you had what is known as Apollo 17. That was broadcast. It was not hid. The Apollo 17 mission between the United States and Russia did occur. And then you had, as far as the Skylab is concerned, and the International Space Station, those are all known about. What is a little confusing is what happened around the Apollo 18 landing site. They definitely lost one. I believe that Apollo 18, they were supposed to dock or something, and apparently something went wrong, and they became infected. At least the Americans became infected. Whatever happened to the cosmonauts on the Soviet spacecraft, until that black box is pulled, we won't know.
Well,
and if they were attacked, which there was something occurred in that capsule, And if it was to turn out that they were murdered by the Greys, then the Russians have a beef with the Greys. Then again, if one if if the cosmonauts and the astronauts were fighting each other, then we have an issue where Russians pissed off the United States. So I don't know at this point what happened to those cosmonauts.
Um. Okay. Well, here's some. This is on the website. So it actually clarifies some people's questions, but it says here, contacts with William Rutledge and one of the astronauts of Apollo 20 mission issued the possibility of converting some of the videos from Super 8 to digital files, which still had a low display quality movie. So that's probably, some people are asking why is the video quality so low, because it was, I guess, the transfer from Super 8 to digital. William must have died in Luanda. Do you know what that is? What's Luanda? William
Well,
Rutledge.
I know. I would think he's dead now. Hell, that's a good many years back, James. You have to remember, uh, if we go back to the movie Outbreak about the virus and everything, and the Ebola and everything, you have the methane gas around the lake from the volcano. It's not a healthy place to live, a tropical area, all kind of diseases and such. And then throw that on top of, you have radiation from the moon and such.
And
You're
also
going to
the worms.
eventually die anyway.
There are also the worms on the moon too that infected you.
Well, there are parasites in the lunar dust. I had one that attached itself to me many years prior to that. But I was able to get chemo and it dropped off of me. Um, the rock spiders, um, I know very little about that, but I'm thinking, and this is what's got me kind of asking a question here. You remember when Apollo came back, they were giving away moon rocks. Some of the senators were given moon rocks. Some um, countries, presidents were given moon rocks. It wasn't too many gave away, but some rocks were given away. And my question is could that spider have been in some of those rock samples? See, a lot of those rocks are still locked up. NASA still has those rocks locked up.
And were these rock spiders did you actually see one?
I never uh I don't I mean as far as what busted out of the suit of the cosmonaut, I never could determine if a rock spider got in there with him. Now it was known that one of the Apollo astronauts had gotten bit by a rock spider. So I'm going by um, what's been told to me, what occurred, that some type of Ebola-like, leprosy-like broke out in that spacecraft. So I'm not sure how William died. I'm pretty sure he lived for several years after that. I do know that when Russia was going through their revolution, when Gorbachev was in charge, William traveled to Russia to try to meet with the cosmonaut who was on that spacecraft with him, and he never was able to meet with him because they were fighting in the streets and the taxis were all shut down. Uh, Apparently, he was close to the cosmonaut.
All right. We'll just continue quickly going through this. So the screenshot here. I wanted to comment about they had a type of sleeping bag that had a lead sheet, which allowed them to pass through the Van Allen belt safely. But I guess some of them might have gotten sick still. William Rutledge, and by the way, Luanda is the capital of Angola, according to Sandy Wright, in Africa. So he was hiding there after the mission, and let's see here. William Rutledge formed a Bell Laboratories company for the U.S. Air Force, began to be trained in 1968 for a mission would be called Vandenberg 20. The Apollo 20 was canceled by NASA in 1970 by technical problems, and the program was ready to be launched in August 1976. So, okay, and then just quickly going down here, a little bit more about the landing. Before the mission, actually, several probes were sent to the orbit to the moon to detail locations of the possible landing site of the ISAC-D. So I guess that was the Apollo 19 mission. To port southeast of the crater, the dark side of the moon. It all started with the Apollo Soyuz project, or the mission Apollo 18, which is the one that went missing, which you're talking about. So, okay. Apollo 19 flight would be unnamed reconnaissance, had a fault telemetry, and yielded nothing. The USA-Russia partnership consolidated because Russians were already with all they had all the information detailed breakdown of the area. Russian Luna 15 probe in 1969 made hundreds of flights in the orbit around the area and literally went into the nose of the great ship while purposely recording their latest telephotos. The head of the Russian recognition program, Valentin Aleskev, already assembled a detailed framework involving that great ship, the secondary triangular ship, and the ruins of a large base next to the wreckage. According to Rutledge, E.B. Mona Lisa did not remember who gave him this name, Linoff or me. It was the intact EBE, humanoid female, 1.65 meters tall, hairy, 6 fingers, function, piloting device fixed to fingers and eyes, no clothes. We had to cut 2 cables connected to the nose. There was no nostrils. Linoff unfixed the eyes device. Corrections of blood or bioliquid erupted and froze the mouth, nose, and eyes in some parts of the body. Some parts were in good condition, not very common. Hair and the skin was protected by a thin, transparent cover. Does this ring a bell to you, Jimmy?
I'm sorry, you cut out the very last sentence there.
And the skin was protected by a thin, transparent cover.
Yeah, it's kind of like they rubbed a lotion on her. It was kind of like a protective. It was. You could probably wash it off, but it was a kind of a covering over on her skin.
Okay, with told to mission control, body conditions seemed not alive and not dead. We had nothing of medical equipment, much less experience. But Linoff and I did a test. We fixed our bio equipment on the EBE and telemetrically aid received by surgeon, mission control physicians were positive. There's another story. Some parts could be unbelievable now. I prefer to tell the whole story when the other videos online. This experience has been filmed in the LM lunar module, I guess.
Lunar module.
We found a second body destroyed, and we brought the head on board, which you just said. Skin color was bluish gray and blue crayon. The skin had strange details about the eye. The front ribbon around the head had no registration. The cockpit was full of calligraphy and formed of long tubes and was semi-hexagonal. Okay. Now, there you have it. Okay. Well, were they able to, as far as the status of Mona Lisa, why doesn't she want to wake up from her stasis?
Well, it could be it could be that she was injured, James, and being they didn't have the equipment there, they probably put her in stasis till they can get her body to be repaired. But she's not dead. Now you can hook her up. She's at it. Last time I saw her, they had her at Nellis Air Force Base. Now, as far as what William is talking about, the astronauts wear certain patches on them that monitors our temperature, our brain waves, and is sent back to NASA. And so what William did, he just took his his uh, his probes off of his body and connected to hers. And yeah, I mean, NASA didn't get a heartbeat out of her, but but NASA could tell that she had brain waves. Now, when they got her back to Earth, I went to NASA where they were housing her and sat down beside her bed, and I put my hand over her forehead, and also I put it on the side of her face like a Vulcan would do, and communicate with her that way. Um, but my thing is this: I believe if her people have the technology to revive her, but she's got to be brought back to her people. She's got to be brought back.
And do you know who her people are?
James, all I know is that she is a humanoid. She's probably from somewhere from the Philippines to Vietnam, or either from uh, Japan. I don't believe she's Chinese. Uh, what it is, you don't want the Chinese to get a hold of her because they already are ambitious. Okay, um, there is some type of missing link between the Orientals and this woman here. She's probably uh, she could very well be from the future. Okay, um, so she's she's some type of an ancestor of humans, or humans are ancestors of hers.
All right. Yeah. Well, how about this? Can you comment about? I know I've got. Hold on a
Now
second.
that's the head I found.
Yeah.
That's not her. That's a head that I found underneath the wreckage. That's the one that's bluish in color.
So why do they call her Mona Lisa?
Well, they is me. Now, when I first channeled her when I was a little boy, we can't pronounce her name. We don't have our vocabulary is different from hers. We don't have the letters to pronounce her name. And when I was a little boy, I saw a picture of Mona Lisa, uh, and I knew what she looked like, so I just named her Mona Lisa. That's the name I gave her.
Do you have any other messages? Does she still communicate with you?
No, I haven't communicated with her in a number of years. The only way that I would be able to communicate, I would have to go back and put my hand on her forehead, and I could communicate with her that way. Um, she's a botanist. I mean, that's where all the foliage was in her craft. Either she was collecting it, or either she was transporting it to Earth. But
Can you comment about the plants on the vessel? Were they still alive?
no, the plants were frozen on the spacecraft. They were frozen, but they were very similar to the plants in Southeast Asia,
Okay.
like you would find in the jungle of Southeast Asia.
Did NASA try to take some of that stuff back and try to germinate it and grow it?
There were samples taken back, James. I did take some of the little black triangular boxes back. There was hundreds of them in the craft. Um, they're they're ceramic, they're black. If you took a hammer and you hit it, it would not make any sound. It's slightly cool to the touch, and it weighs practically nothing. It's very similar to the heat shield that we have on the space shuttle. I'm not sure if it's used as a heat shield or if it's used as possibly like a Wi-Fi extender. But there was hundreds of them in there. These little black triangular boxes that were in the craft, along with the vegetation.
What is
Flower
it?
samples.
Yeah, what is this we're looking at?
That's her. That's her skin.
Oh, but she had like tattoos all over.
I can't make that out. It's a little too close. Can you?
I can't really do much of the footage. It's so low res, but you can see right there. It looks like some tattoos or.
No, I think that's part of the control panel. It looks like that's her skin there.
This right here is her skin.
I think that's her skin.
Okay. All right.
That's part of stuff that.
I want you to comment about this. It looked like this writing. What is this?
That's her writing.
So she had pieces of paper around, or Jimmy?
In our alphabet, we can't transmit. The only way to transmit it I would have to put my hand on her forehead, and she has to transmit it for me. That was put up.
Translate, you mean?
That was probably put up after the crash, when they didn't have any, when the computers were down. They apparently probably just wrote that and stuck it on the craft before they head off, and they never returned.
Oh, so it's like giving instructions to whoever comes back and tries to rescue them.
Well, it's left a note of, they left a note with her. She's too damaged. They left her behind.
Okay. Let's go to this next question. We'll probably come to close to the end of this, but how come they were able to leak this footage? I mean, NASA is like they're a bunch of Nazis when it comes to.
I don't know, James. It's some, it gets out. Maybe NASA did it. I'm sure that the Russians knew about it, because the Russians, we had a Russian on board. It could be the Russian leaked it. So I'm not going to say William leaked it. But then again, it might have been somebody in NASA that just leaked it. I did. Now Holloman Air Force Base knew about it. Not Holloman, but Lovelace Clinic knew it. I was I had talked to them about Mona, but they didn't have the footage, but they did know about it.
Okay. Next question. Can you comment on how were they able to operate the telemetry with a slide ruler and a calculator, a computer equivalent to a calculator? How are you able to operate that craft?
They did it on the Apollo 11. What's the difference? Now, are you talking about, when you say the craft, are you talking about that one there, or are you talking about the Apollo craft?
The Apollo craft, yeah, so primitive, the technology.
Well, the Apollo craft, the computing power inside the actual craft is about that of what you would get if you went to Walmart and bought a Texas Instrument calculator. That's about the computing power that was in the Apollo spacecraft. There's a reason why NASA stopped production of that craft. computers were getting stronger and more powerful.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy.
But yeah, they could operate it. It didn't take a whole lot. I mean,
Here's a question from GV. Were you actually present during the filming of Mona and the lunar module? And did you actually witness Russian cosmonaut Alexei Leonov?
yes, both. I
Okay.
was present inside the craft, but I could not talk to the Russian cosmonaut. I could make hand signals to him. One, I did not speak Russian. And two, even if I did not have a live feed. Only William, the only feed I had was to William through my helmet to his helmet.
All right. Can you comment about planet Earth? Was it larger than we see in the pictures, or was it Earth? Did it actually look like what we see in the pictures? What do you think?
Well, it's like what you see in the pictures now. If you see Earth without any stars behind it, that means it's been doctored. But if you look from the moon, you'll see the Earth. Now, some of the pictures I've seen has not had stars behind it. Those are doctored pictures up.
Okay, because there's some people that think that Earth is a lot bigger than it really is, not necessarily flat, but
Well, Africa is a lot larger than it is on many maps.
how's that
Uh,
possible? How could
it's
they get
just the way the maps are made. Uh, if you get a live satellite view, you can appreciate the scale of Africa. But if you go to a paper copy, it doesn't. Maybe they just don't want to, take up that much space on a paper copy, a paper map. But
but there's
that's
like there's no ice wall or like megalithic, planet that's like super Earth that's, and we're just on the tiniest portion of it.
I don't understand. Could you
Okay,
clarify?
all right. Well,
Okay.
yeah, let's just move on. All right, next question. Did Kubrick produce the moon footage that we're seeing? I guess that was in the Apollo 11. Was it the Stanley Kubrick set in London where they filmed the 2001 Space Odyssey?
Well, I know the Apollo 11 has been doctored up. Now, they did go to the moon. That's a fact. Now, what happened, the astronauts of Apollo 11 has been through MK Ultra. What happened, when they landed, they cut the actual feed and they fed into it assimilated feed. But what happened was the they actually entered some alien ruins. The Apollo 11 astronauts actually entered some alien ruins, but they never showed it. Okay, if that's what you're referring to, that's a real footage right there.
Is that you, Jimmy?
No, that's the other astronaut. He was playing with it so much that they handed it to me.
The camera?
Well, you see a camera on his camera.
I guess I can go back and look.
You see that camera right there? I'm shooting that camera feed there.
Hmm.
And if you back it up, you see the other astronaut playing with his camera.
Hmm.
You see that? He can't quite. He's playing with his camera.
Okay.
Okay, but that actual shot there is from me once I got there. I'm not sure, he may have filled his camera up, but there's only so much film in each camera.
So So going back to the 2001 Space Odyssey, that was that soft disclosure, or is that like HAL 5000? Was that all real or fake or what?
There's parts of it. There's some truth to it. Uh, there is some truth to it, but it's not all accurate. It's loosely based on some truth. And yes, I have interacted with how uh, the I have interacted with that computer system, and the computer did kill some astronauts.
Well, here's a question. So if HAL 5000 was so advanced, why were they running the Apollo craft on calculators when they could have used the HAL 5? Well, I mean, I guess they don't really want to
Well,
use it.
first of all, HAL 5000 was developed. The technology it was human technology parts, but it was assembled by the Tall White Warriors. So the Tall White Warriors built HAL 5000 out of off-the-shelf parts. Now, the Apollo parts were built by just regular technicians. So the two are not connected.
Okay. And HAL 5000 actually did kill the astronauts, like in the movie.
Yes, that did happen. Hal had a software program, he had a flaw in his system, and Hal's software system was developed by a tall white warrior, but it had a flaw in it. It locked up on me, um, and and it shut down, and I had to get a tall white warrior to re to to reboot it to get the bugs out of it.
And yeah, this is from the movie.
Now, wait a second. What
Yeah,
you're seeing, back up just a second. First, no, with the lot that right there.
yeah.
First of all, um, the real HAL 5000 is the one that the Tall White Warrior made was a diamond. Now that one there you saw that little red dot that was built in Illinois. Illinois State University built that little red dot, the little red thing you see there. Oh, that's just a prototype.
Yeah.
That wasn't on the spacecraft.
Okay. All right. Let's get. I think I'm near maybe one more question. We can call it a day here. I'm sure everybody might be relieved considering the 2.5 hour lecture. Um, the Artemis 1 is a new craft that NASA is proposing to do a flyover of the moon. What has changed in the exopolitics of the solar system that's allowing NASA to do it, or is it just another psyop? What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking that the technology is just getting so advanced that they're ready to go back out and to explore. It wasn't um, economically possible. You have to have a space station up there, and that wasn't present when when this was going on with Mona Lisa. So you now have a space station. Um, the rockets, the computers have all are much more mature. You have to remember when that was shot up, um, when the Apollo spacecraft was shot up, there wasn't no cell phones, James. There was no Wi-Fi. You know, it's only been in the last few years that we've had not in the 90s that we've had cellular phones and internet computers where you can email.
Understood. Okay. Well, I guess only time will tell, and we'll get to the bottom of that one eventually. What's going on there? But okay. Well, I think we might just call it a day. I might. Well, let me just do one more quick scan through the chat. If anybody else has got some good questions. So it says, yeah, people comment out the doom and gloom timeline is not going to happen now. Well, I guess time will tell on that one. Higher Ground has commented Apollo 11 astronauts underwent MK Ultra programming that entered ancient ruins that NASA whitewashed. Can you confirm that? Did they try to do MK Ultra programming on you, Jimmy, when you got back to wipe your mind?
No. I've been through MK Ultra. I know Buzz Aldrin. I know him from when I was out at Papoose Lake out in at Nellis Air Force Base. I met Buzz when he got his jet stuck back there 2 weeks prior to the moon launch. I had to help, uh, get his jet out of the salt lake there. Uh, the only time I've ever really forgot anything is what happened to me down into the crater during the when I was dragging the cosmonaut out. It was only like 2 years after that, 2-3 years after that, I started having memories of the tall gray, more or less saying that he did not want us to ever return to that area. We weren't welcome.
Here's a comment. Free Money says Buzz Aldrin said we never went to the moon.
We went to the moon, and Buzz did go to the moon. Buzz has been through MK Ultra. His mind has been wiped. He has no memory of going into the alien ruins. There's some people going around, saying about the false moonshot or the moon hoax. I want them to know not to harass Buzz. Buzz did go. Buzz has no memory for about an hour, a couple of hours there. His mind was wiped, and he does not recall going into the alien ruins. Uh, um, and you have to remember, Buzz he's getting old now, and he should be given the respect that an astronaut deserves. I never got that respect. I didn't get to go out on the circuit like he did and give lectures, and that was his time and his generation, and we should be very proud of Buzz. But Buzz is not hiding anything from you. He simply he has no memory of going into the alien runs.
Do you think you can get Buzz? Are you in contact with him?
No. Every once in a while you'll see him on TV. And the last few years I understood that he has had a lot of personal anguish with people, about this moon hoax stuff. And I wanna say this: we're all are Americans. We should be proud of each other. And we have to remember, Buzz is not going to be with us much longer. He's getting in age, and when the film was switched, uh, you know, uh, that was done to hide the alien runs. And I have not talked to Buzz. Um, it'd be great if I could, but I would not want a camera around. I don't want to be known because it ruined his life in a way. I would had I had had I had had this been made public about me, my life would have been ruined like Buzz.
Understood. All right. I think this might be the last time I'll share my screen and we'll call it a day. Here's my presentation, SSP 101. I met up with Ken Johnson. I have the footage of the video with him, but I'm trying to get it. The audio is not as good as I like. So eventually I'm going to get it put up. But according to Ken Johnson, he had inside information that the I don't know, the secret space program groups had what is known as ARCs, aeronautical repositioning chambers. They look like an elevator when you walk in, the walls curve around you, and then 10 minutes later, you're at a new destination. So apparently they don't have to use a rocket to get to certain locations. But I don't know. Did you ever experience any of the jump rooms?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jimmy?
When I was at Camp Comet, or, the tall whites, Rachel, she would send me on jumps. The movie Doom, that is very real. It's hard for me to watch that movie, Doom, Doom. That is very realistic. And about standing in a circle and a bubble comes up and it engulfs you, that is very real.
And Doom is the one where they go to Mars to fight, go into hell, right?
Yeah.
Into hell, yeah. And there's
Yeah.
also a game.
That movie is hard for me to sit and watch.
Okay, well, let's call it a day. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, audience members. Be sure to say like and subscribe. I don't know how long this channel is going to stay up, but we'll hold intention for more soft disclosure coming up in the future. Also, be sure to visit supersoldiertalk.com. I've got some posts and articles on there. The new post from the Titan Moon about New Nuremberg, which is a German colony that was set up. They time traveled back in time 700 years. They found a magnetosphere from one of the guardians of the builder race that originally set up ancient technology all over this part of the universe. But yeah, they set up a colony over there. So go check that out. And there's other articles as well. So, also be sure to go to my website, the other website, Neological Tech. You can get a copy of my book. Also get yourself a meditation cube to help you relax. Yeah, so I actually assemble these myself, so you're getting a handmade product. But anyhow, well, that's all we have today. So thank you, Jimmy. Any other final comments?
Well, I enjoyed talking with you, and I'm glad that people are listening and hearing this. And I know there's a lot of disinformation out there. I just really wanted to touch on the William Rutledge story. You have a lot of people that would jump up and start talking about the secret space program, like the Okie guy who was faking it. And, everybody wants to get the truth. We get to it at different angles and different ways. And to just have a little faith in your fellow man and fellow woman and try to enjoy life and live long and prosperous.
All right, there you have it. We'll all see you next time. Bye, everyone, and have a great day wherever you may be. See you later. Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.